Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the recovery plug. What's going on, everybody? Man, it's oh, weekend's over. It's Sunday. Man, this weekend was a pretty good weekend, man. You know what I mean? Can't wait to get in on that and let you know what happened this weekend. But before we get started with that, I would like to have a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers. So if you would, please, a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Alrighty, man. So, how's it going, everybody? Man, you know what? This past weekend was really a great weekend for folks in the NA community, the Narcotics Anonymous community. I personally myself attend Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I attend AA meetings. I have a few peer support groups through the VA that I attend for veteran support groups for my addiction and for PTSDs and childhood traumatic experiences, and I have two groups that I attend through the VA for those things, and so I attend quite a few. I involve myself in quite a few peer support group type things, and this past weekend they had this whole NA convention here in the city where I'm from in San Antonio, Texas, and the Esperanza area Narcotics Anonymous group had their annual convention, and man, was it a turnout! I went for the Saturday get together, and man, the guy there, Dan, from God, I believe he was from California. He was the main speaker. Man, his story was awesome. There was a bunch of messages, man, going through there, and a few messages from local people. Actually, one of the groups that I attend at the newcomer meeting downtown. One of the guys that attends there, I've seen him a few times. His name's Abdul. Kudos to you, Abdul, for your message during the your time there in the convention. Man, he was able to speak. They chose him to do one of the speakers at one of the meetings there, and man, he did a good job. He shared a message that was awesome, and so yeah, man, this weekend was just it was just. I don't know. It was a good weekend, you know what I mean, and it was all positive, you know what I mean, except for the bitter cold weather. Everything else was great, Here in Texas, we're not used to that cold stuff, man. So, for those of you who live up north, man, I'm sure you guys, if you live in San Antonio, if you're from up north, then I'm sure you really enjoyed the weather. But man, for us who are homegrown here in San Antonio, Texas. Heck no. But anyway, what I wanted to do today is I'm going to read one of the stories out of the big book of the NA book, and it is this book right here, the Narcotics Anonymous book, and it is that book right there. Can you see that? Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to read a story out of this book, and then kind of let you know how that particular story is how it works, or how I can relate to it in my journey of addiction and recovery, and perhaps maybe one of you guys and gals out there who are listening to the podcast will also be encouraged through the message that comes out of that reading. And I'm going to get my glasses so that I can get to the reading, and we'll get to it. So here we go. I'm going to put this mic down. Hopefully, I'm going to set it right here. Hopefully, you guys can still get a good sounding, and it doesn't mess up the sound. But here we go. The story's called Second Chance. Okay, as I sat on the edge of the couch with my head in my hands, I felt completely bewildered. I was crying, but I didn't feel any tears. I was screaming, but there wasn't any sound. and I was watching my husband of 12 years pace the house like a caged animal. I was too nervous to talk to him and afraid not to. Our NA friends from around the country were ringing the phone off the hook. They all had suggestions and ideas. There was a lot of whispering going on. Plans were being made. My whole life was in complete and utter insanity. This all seemed too surreal. A few weeks earlier at my NA home group, I had picked up my 13th year medallion. And less than a month later, there I was, sitting on the couch, a newcomer. Today, I know that my relapse started long before that. Over the years, I have heard many addicts say one bad thought and one bad action could lead to relapse. For me, at the time, it wasn't about the thought because I didn't think. I hadn't any thought at all. For me, it was entirely about my bad actions. I was in my office sitting at my business partner's desk, and inside a slightly open drawer, I saw a pile of crystal meth. I reached in, took it out, and played with it a little, and snorted it. Period. I certainly wish I had thought anything, but I didn't. I had stopped thinking well before I was faced with the opportunity to do that. One bad action. Today, I know so many factors played into my relapse. I hardly went to meetings, almost none at all. I hadn't been keeping in contact with fellow addicts. I had held onto a self-centered resentment with my sponsor that separated us for a whole year. This list could go on and on. Dishonesty, complacency, greed, arrogance, and judgment. For a long time, I had felt immune to relapse and had an attitude of better than. When I got clean the first time, I considered myself a high bottom addict. Sure, I used a lot of different drugs, just about anything I could get my hands on, but cocaine and pot were my drugs of choice. I was a middle-aged girl who turned up her nose at dirty drugs like meth and crank. The progression of my disease for all those years clean is hard to believe. When I relapsed, I used like there wasn't any tomorrow, like there wasn't any price to be paid. I recklessly tore through the lives of those who loved me. The greater the pain, the more I used, without any thought of living or dying. Overnight, my addiction once again held me prisoner. I started gouging at the skin of my face and pulling chunks of flesh from my body. From the very first day, I continued to believe that I was infested with bugs for a very long time. I was hooked, and even though I kept using, the drugs weren't getting me high any longer. I just kept getting more and more detached mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually. I knew that I had unleashed a huge monster. I remember feeling so trapped by the thoughts in my head, full of Narcotics Anonymous, and my body full of drugs. When I heard my sponsor's voice on the telephone, that resentment that had separated us for so long disappeared. I was really comforted by the sound of her voice. Her words took me to a safe and vulnerable place that I hadn't been to in quite some time, but they also confirmed for me that I had gotten myself into a nightmare that neither she nor anyone else could fix for me. Surrender was a long way away. The very first place I wanted to go was to treatment because of all my judgments and treatment in the past. But I knew once my sponsor and other NA friends started suggesting it, that was exactly where I was headed. In a moment of clarity, I admitted that I didn't want to become a statistic of jails, institution, and death. I knew that I was in serious trouble. Instead of feeling grateful that I was being given a chance to get clean again, I felt angry, hurt, scared, and crazy with paranoia. I had lived the miracle of the program for 13 years, and now I felt like an alien. It felt like I didn't fit anywhere, not in NA, and certainly not on the streets. I didn't stay clean. I was mentally unstable and a danger to myself as well as to others. I kept fighting the process like a soldier at war. I left the inpatient treatment facility against the advice of my counselor. I was so raw and completely full of rage. Unfortunately, for me, it took 3 trips to treatment to finally get it. Getting off drugs was not easy, but it was the easier part. My pain, shame, guilt, and complete confusion were all too much to take. Instead of calling my sponsor or support system, I ran from everyone and everything. I went from town to town. I landed back in my hometown and suggested yet another treatment center. I finally realized I was the problem. I went to their outpatient program for only 3 days, but I didn't continue to see their addiction specialist for over a year. He drug tested me on a regular basis and was very NA-oriented. I needed that kind of accountability. I was so unpredictable, I didn't trust anything, most of all myself. A lot of my relapse is a blur to me. I haven't any memory of the very last time I used before entering treatment, but I will never, ever forget walking back through the doors of NA. I was terrified. I sat through the first meeting wanting to get loaded and run. I was sweating, I was shaking, and my stomach felt like I was going to be sick. I didn't think that I had what it took to do this whole recovery thing again. I truly believe that I was just a has-been. My sponsor suggested that I share at the next meeting that I attended. The only thing that I said was my name and that I had relapsed with 13 years clean. I have never experienced anything like that. I expected judgment and criticism, but what I actually received was nothing but love. I was embraced by the addicts in the room. I arrived at the meeting feeling hopeless and feeling like I too had a fighting chance. I had to do everything differently. For a long time I felt as if I would never be normal again, and regardless of stubbing my toes along the way, I just kept trying. As much as I would love to say that I was grateful at that moment for being clean and that nothing else mattered, I can't. I was stuck in a place of how I used to be or how I used to look for a long time. The majority of my clean life before relapsing was a beautiful thing. I had some good friends, great family, and a dedicated marriage. Once I picked up everything, every aspect of my life changed. My friends and family were scared to death that I would end up dead, and my marriage hit the skids. To say the least, I was so overwhelmed by feelings I thought I would just die. Numbing those feelings felt like an option for a long time. It wasn't until I began writing on my steps again, getting honest with my sponsor and sharing in meetings that my thinking began to change. The more meetings I attended, the better I felt. I had to realize that what I had to put myself through was trauma to my body and mind. I had to quit fighting the grieving process that was necessary for me to begin to heal, trust, and change. It was necessary for me to grieve the woman I once was, the life I once had, and the marriage that my husband and I had worked so hard to build in order to accept the woman I was becoming and make a new life for myself. I learned to be gentle with myself as I would with any newcomer. The knowledge that I had accumulated for the first 13 years had to be put aside so I could become teachable. I had to learn the guilt of humility and vulnerability. I learned to be honest with myself as well as with others, no matter the shame I felt. I learned how to ask for help and accept it when it was offered. The days of thinking that meetings were a social affair, a fashion show were over. For me, meetings were essential to staying clean. This was the real deal. I was here this time to save my life. Today, looking back, it feels as if that period of my life was forever ago. I can remember being on my knees, praying to my higher power for the obsession to use be lifted. and begging for a quiet heart and peace of mind. The desperation I felt during that time just makes me shudder. Other than being clean, I just wanted to feel comfortable in my own skin and not be overtaken with nightmarish thoughts and using dreams. Today, I am worlds away from that woman who entered treatment over 7 years ago. I am comfortable in my own skin, and best of all, I do have a quiet heart and peace of mind. I am extremely grateful to my higher power, my sponsor, and all the people who helped to guide me back to the quality of life that I am once again living. I have deep compassion for the still suffering addicts, to be it the addict who is sitting in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, the addict who has yet to find the rooms, or especially the addict who left and yet has to find the way back. I can only pray that I will never let fade the memory of the pain it took for me to return to the program, and always remember I was loved back, not judged back. I want to always remember so that I can extend the same respect to another addict, that I have so much today, but honesty. None of it was possible without a lot of hard footwork. I had to begin to forgive myself for disrespecting the very program that saved my life the first 21 years ago. For disrespecting my marriage, and which began in recovery, and last but not least, for disrespecting myself for returning to a life of drugs and disease. I don't live in shame today about what happened, but I have learned from my mistakes. I share honestly and openly with other addicts. I would give anything and everything under the sun to have taken a different route, but because I can't, I need to accept the responsibilities for my own actions and grow from it. I believe today that if I had never relapsed, I would have 21 years abstinent, and that is all. But thankfully, I have 7.5 years clean, with tons of heart and soul and dedication, and a love that I can hardly put into words. With the help of others, the 12 steps and the principles of this program, my marriage was saved. I have gained trust within my family and friends again. I am no longer an outsider looking in. I am a part of it. It has been a long road back, but I believe I am one of the lucky ones. Man, that is the end of the story. And dude, that is a really powerful story. And you know what? For me, man, can I relate to that story? I could. That story is, I can relate to it like really, really. It's crazy because to me it's almost like this thing that happened to me. She said she was 13 years clean, and she happened to just look in that drawer that was slightly open, and saw that meth in her her work partner's freaking desk, and then she picked it up and just did it, period. And man, I had a stretch of sobriety with one time in my life. I was sober for 10 years, and it was almost the same. It was a different scenario, but I can remember distinctly, getting the bolo full of meth offered to me, and literally saying no. But at the same time, in my mind, I could remember my mind telling me, dude, just do it. You're good, bro. You got 10 years clean, man. What the heck's one hit gonna do? The freaking bolo came back around, and I denied it again. I knew what was gonna happen when I showed up at my friend's house, when I dropped him off after watching the Spurs game. I knew that when I dropped him off and he asked me to come in, I knew exactly what was gonna happen. And instead of saying no and just driving off, I got off. And I was like, all right, man, yeah, we'll shoot the shit for a minute. Passes that thing around on the third time. The disease is cunning and baffling. The disease is deceitful. The disease will talk you into doing anything, man. And I talked myself into it. Third time around, that bolo come around, I just grabbed it without me. That was the thing, is that I didn't think. Because the first 2 times I was thinking the NA way. I was thinking the 12-step way. I was thinking a spiritual way. You know what I mean? I knew, I said, God, I'm good. Help me out here. When it come back around, and I kept thinking, no, just say no. And I did. But that third time is a charm. Because that third time it was like, dude, just a hit. I mean, come on, how bad could it be? Do this hit and you get the heck out of here. Get back in your truck and go home. Oh yeah, I did. I got back in my truck and went home. After being at my friend's for about a freaking day. I remember I stayed there for hours. It was like 12, 13 hours until I finally left. Wired up. Just ashamed, just thinking, man, what the flip did you do? And you know what the craziest thing about it was that I was still thinking that I was good. My mind kept telling me, "Dude, hey, you're fine, dude. Just go get you some rest, and we'll get back on the grind of your daily, work and whatever else that you do." And man, I unfortunately, just like that woman in her story said that, she trampled over people that she loved, and she was in a point where she would just go and wouldn't come back, and she was in I don't care mode. And I always call it the I don't give a F mode, you know what I mean? Because you don't give a shit about you or anything else, so long as that you're getting fed the disease. And after that day, I picked up a bolo every single morning for the 5 years straight after that. You know what I mean? And I trampled on some people's feelings. I trampled on some people physically, mentally, spiritually, including myself. And the way she says that she could remember distinctly, that she could remember when she went back to NA, into one of the meetings, that they accepted her. They didn't judge her. They accepted her. They threw some love on her. And that's exactly what they do in those meetings, man. If you're new, they don't know you. Man, welcome. They give you a hug and, right on. You're there. You know what I mean? You're amongst people who are going through and who have gone through things similar to the ones that you're going through. And that's what I could relate to. That's those. I could say anything in those meetings, get anything off my chest, and it's something that the majority of the meetings, the old timers and the people with a little bit of sobriety under the belt, is going to be something that they haven't already heard. You know what I mean? But the good thing is that because they've already heard it, and because they've already gone through it, or know somebody who has gone through it, they know how to help you. You know what I mean? They know exactly what to say to you. But like that book says, you have to be hopeful, you have to be open-minded, and you have to be willing to the change. And be willing to open up yourself and let the guards down, be vulnerable to not only other people, but to yourself, to your higher power. Because if you can't bring the barriers down so that you can let yourself free and allow your higher power to, for me, my higher power is God. You know what I mean? I believe in Jesus Christ, and that's my higher power. For you, it may be different. For somebody, it may be the Islamic religion. It may be Buddhism. It may be, whatever it is that you believe in. But if it makes you feel that spiritual connection, well, then that's what you use. And, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I was able to get back into the rooms of NA, because after relapsing for those 5 years, I got an opportunity that, just like she says, she feels like one of the lucky ones. And that's how I feel. I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones because the environment and the people that I was involved with at the time of my, in the last, when I was in my addiction, the people that I had relationships with friends and men and women that I genuinely cared about are still there. They're still there in the addiction. They're still there in the negativity, in that realm of evil. And why I got chosen to get out, I have no idea. But because I did get chosen, and I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones, is why, and the reason that I do this video podcast, so that I can do my due diligence in my service work to spread the message and to let people know what has helped me along the way to get to where I am in this world of positivity and recovery, that it may in turn there help somebody else. It may in turn there help the new person, the person that has never, who doesn't know anything about the program, or who doesn't know anything about a 12-step program. Because there's many different 12-step programs. I'm not here to promote 12-step or to say one program is better than the other, because I involve myself in quite a few different ones. You know what I mean? I'm involved. I involve myself in the NA meetings. I involve myself in AA meetings. I involve myself in peer support groups through the VA. I go to different types of meetings, and I listen to different podcasts. I listen to different people doing, sermons, and I like listening to shamans and, just different folks, and I like to get spiritual connection and wisdom from different types of people, and people who have gone through adversities. And, I feel that if I can learn from other folks and put those things that they're doing in, and exercise them into my own life, and feel engaged where it's helping me, then in turn there I can feed that to someone else to let them know that, hey, this is what I did, and this may help you. And so that's the beauty of it. That's you're able to make those types of relationships, those types of connections, because in my life today, I don't put any negative or false boundaries in my life today. Everything that I do in my life today is all positive, and it's recovery-based and spiritual, faith-based things that I do and involve myself in. Everything is like that. I don't bring any negativity into my life, because I want my energies to be clean. I want my energies to be radiant. I want my energies to be reflective and transparent and inviting, that if somebody sees and feels the energy that I have, that they know that they're sitting in front of a person who is willing to help, who is there to help, who is there to share and help, for them to mentally and physically and spiritually get into this realm of positivity and recovery where I'm at and sitting here today. And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping other people, and I enjoy listening to other people, and being involved in those types of communities, because it is imperative that you understand that. Because, man, when I relapsed, I went back and thought, what the heck did I do wrong? You know what I mean? And I can tell you to a T the things that I stopped doing in that last year. On my 10th year of sobriety, I had stopped going to meetings. I had stopped reading any type of literature. It wasn't, podcasting wasn't, real big back then. I wasn't watching videos or anything like that, and so I decided that I was going to live my life my way, the only way I knew how. And it got me back, my life, the way I know how to live life, involves drugs. You know what I mean? It involves taking that risk. You know what I'm saying? That's how I live. And it never worked. It never worked out. Yeah, there was good parts to it here and there, you know, and I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed a lot of that shit. And that's the one thing, is because I can sit here and honestly tell you that I know that you know, going down that road is bad, and it's not gonna amount to anything. It's just gonna lead me to a different spot, just worse. It's gonna be negative. It's gonna be evil. But you know, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do because I enjoy getting high. I like it. But I know that it leads me always to a bad road and a bad result. So I know that I have to not do it. And the only way that I can do that is by having an accountability in myself personally. Number one is have accountability spiritually and accountability in my recovery community. You know, so one of the accountability things that I have in what I like to call my recovery arsenal, that things that I have that help me navigate through my life, is this doing these podcast videos. This is an accountability for me. You know what I mean? I have to take time out of my day to read literature, to figure out how I'm going to set up my podcast or where I'm going to do it, because I make it a whole big thing. You know what I mean? I make it a big thing because my thing is I like always, you know, today I'm inside, you know, because it's cold outside, but normally I'm out on the town. I'm out downtown somewhere, and I'm looking for a place that I can set up to do my podcast video, so have this background. That was just my thing, is I love having different settings in the background. So, you know, I like it. That makes me happy. So that's why I do it. And so that's one of the accountability things that I do to stay clean, to stay sober, so that I don't go back into the dark realm, is to do the video podcast. And you know, I do different things like that, and I'm able to say no today to not only myself, but to unhealthy boundaries that come my way. You know what I mean? Because I remember in my addiction, I would say no to nobody. You know? And everybody said, hey man, can you help me go do this lick? Yeah man, I got you, brother. I'm right there doing a lick with somebody, and I don't even know what kind of trouble I'm going to be getting into, but I just do it because I can't say no. I'm a people pleaser. You know what I mean? My girlfriend would be like, oh, I need some more shit. Okay, I got you. Boom, I'll jump on the bike and I'm off to hustle it up. I don't give a shit what. You know what I mean? So I understand that. And it's today I'm able to recognize those things. I have the wisdom now that I can recognize the bad boundaries, the things that are not going to keep me in that positive realm. So I can say no, you know what? I'm not going to put that in my life. I'm going to put this in my life. So now I read a lot of literature. I listen to a lot of spiritual and, you know, shamans and all kinds of different positive, encouraging, motivational things on YouTube and you know, read a lot of stuff. I'm currently reading 3 books right now, you know what I mean? And not to mention the NA book that I read on the daily. You know, even if it's something that I've read the whole NA book before, but I always go back and read. It's just like when I read the Bible, same thing. I've read the Bible a few times, you know, from page 1 to the end, and I keep going back to it because, you know, it's just part of how I live. And so it's a long road. It can be, you know, for some people. You know, for me personally, you know, it is what it is. You know, it sometimes feels like a long time, like it's just a struggle. But you know, there's days like that. But you just have to go through it. You know, it's just a part of adversity, right? And so you know that when you're leading a life like that, there's always going to be evilness that's just going to try to throw things in your life so that you know, trip up and go back. You just got to be aware of all that stuff. And if you keep doing and setting healthy boundaries and positive thinking, then, you know, the probability of you staying in that positive realm of recovery and spirituality is going to be pretty high. So just remember that. And yeah, so, you know, at this time I'd like to ask you guys to please, you know, give me a thumbs up. subscribe to my channel, give me a comment, whatever. I would really appreciate it. Just know that when you do subscribe to my channel, all you got to do is tap that button. It doesn't cost you a thing. And just know that when you do, you will be helping out another veteran like myself, another person dealing with childhood traumatic experiences like myself, another person dealing with PTSDs like myself, another person dealing with drug addiction like myself, another person dealing with depression, sadness, and anger just like myself. So I would greatly appreciate it if you guys please subscribe to my channel. This is the only way that we're going to be able to grow and spread the message to the people that need to hear it, and to the people who are suffering, and to the people who are already in recovery, so that may encourage them to continue their service work and giving away what has helped them along the way to get where they're at now in the spirituality and recovery and positivity. So thank you again for watching my video podcast today. I really appreciate it. And I guess until the next time on When the Smoke Clears, I am the Recovery Plug.